Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So I haven't read the book. I'll get to it. But
Read it standing up in a bookstore.
I can tell that it's certainly cautionary, more than, let's say, optimistic. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's a strong cautionary note, and I think it kind of relates to what we've been talked about, and here, because I mean, like, what do we do? Because I think a lot of, I think some of us might get globalization fatigue. You know, we hear about the global level always, and, you know, like, you know, what the hell am I going to do about my public library, you know, which is run at the municipal level, you know? And so I'm hearing in all this discourse on globality and globalization, I can't help but think of a Tea Party member who's just waking up in a cold sweat after having a nightmare about the black helicopters and then, you know, invading the United States with the one world government. So I guess my very general, you know, maybe, yeah, like more general question to you is are there certain things that we might want to avoid turning into, you know, like bête noirs of, you know, of our endeavors, you know, when it comes to globalization, like, you know, you know, what do we tell that poor Tea Party member, you know, who's sleepless and I mean, like, what you know, like, I'm just right. You know, it's there's a lot of fodder for like conspiracy theories, like grand scale ones, and things that also undermine like more, you know, like I can tell that these treaties kind of have some sort of hold which wasn't there before on monopolies of certain kinds of violence, which the state might have, you know, had before. I don't think anybody here realistically thinks that the NAFTA cops are going to come in and, you know, take you away, you know. It's more like economic sanctions, that kind of thing. But, you know, are there any things that, you know, we can maybe not be scared of, you know, to sort of put it? And you know, it's a serious question, believe it or not.
Well, I don't think we should be scared of the internet, even though it can be used for devastating effect by terrorists. I don't think we need to be scared of globalization. It's just that it's not globalization in itself. We have created, our governments have created globalization. We have, you know, talking about we, the West, we in the industrialized countries have deregulated the financial system, maybe not so much in Canada, but generally. And we've been as in our generation, we've been part of a shift of ideas which used to think that you could look to government to do good things, to the idea that what government does is bad and that we shouldn't pay taxes or we should pay the least possible. And so we're I think we can individually have an impact on that thinking. One silly example, but it makes the point, I think. A colleague of mine came back from a holiday in Europe. He had been in Copenhagen. He had taken a walking tour, and that's the only way you can get around Copenhagen, really, is by foot or by bicycle. And with this guide, at one point stopped and she said to the group, you know, we Danes pay the highest taxes in Europe, and look at our wonderful city. So for her it was a point of pride, and because she could make the connection between what you pay in taxes and what you get as a public domain. And we don't seem to teach our kids that at school. And the whole discourse is we should cut taxes. Any politician who talks about raising taxes is dead. I was at a session a couple of weeks ago with about Finland, and the Finnish ambassador to Canada was there. Somebody had asked him about some political parties in Finland, how they compared to Canadian parties, and he said, well, you know, the current election campaign is between two people, I can't possibly remember who they were, and the one who looks as though he's going to win is the one who's saying most convincingly why he's going to raise taxes. Because he had a reason, and people wanted to, were listening, and they wanted to know what was the best rationale and why these taxes should be raised. And I mean, it doesn't make for a lot of friends if I get up in front of an audience and say, we need to raise our taxes. But we have to change our own minds on things, and it's not that we can't do things. Right now, there's there was for 5 minutes or so in the big crisis of 2008, some consensus about kind of new global Keynesianism, where there should be more government regulation or intergovernmental regulation of the whole financial system and tax, financial transfers. So I think there's room. You can see what could be done that's positive. So there you can be positive and hopeful. It's just that and China is the big bad boy of the world in many people's views, but what you read about the green revolution in China takes your breath away, because once they decide they're going to go green, they will be greener than we are. Oh, not that of course we aren't here in Canada anymore, but green as Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, Europe has done fantastic things quietly, and we all look down our noses at Europe because they can't get their act together and go and invade some other country, but they've done amazing things. So there is a lot that's going on, and that's a function of citizen empowerment.
Could we get someone who hasn't spoken yet? It would be nice to get someone who hasn't.
The World Theater, they are having they're having a movie on like a documentary on democracy, where the taxes, where they get everything, and the taxes are quite low, but they're not as low as people think they are. And that's specifically in Northern Europe and Ireland. And we're also, they get their university education for free.
I guess I'm always thinking about tactics and how we can change things. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was Seattle, with the protests in Seattle, and also the protests around the free trade agreement in the Americas, the SPPs. Is there any real sign that, or would you say there's a lot of signs whether these type of computational, like street politics that happen in these different areas actually have like real qualitative change in the legislation of the treaties that were coming out? Or is that counterproductive almost?
The question is about, is there any evidence that citizen activities
like natural citizens activisms like they had in Seattle, where they actually shut down the World Trade? Does that just drive it off to another venue where it gets negotiated secretly, or are there some real qualitative changes that happen?
Well, the World Trade Organization has made efforts to involve citizens more in forums. I get their stuff on email all the time, and they're always announcing meetings where the public groups can apply to come and be briefed, and there is some consultation. The World Trade Organization itself has pretty well been stalemated by the participation, too much participation from third world countries who are now blocking what the North had been trying to do.
The Doha?
Yeah, and the Doha round, that's pretty well failed, because there's a lot more participation in that sense. Indian farmers who've been protesting against these intellectual property rights for Monsanto, for grains or for pesticides, whatever, have had an effect. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, something else, but there's been a big impact on the trade system, the global constitution of citizens.